Recently, there's been a new class of device that uses flexible screens or dual displays to really reimagine what a laptop can do. Now, we've seen this before on devices like the ASUS Zenbook 17 Fold, and more recently on the Lenovo Yogabook 9i, which we reviewed a couple weeks ago. But now, HP is joining the race with this, the Spectre Fold. And while it does share some similarities with ASUS's rival, it does so in a way sleeker package. Now I get it, some of you at home might be saying, do we really need devices like this? And look, I get it. But at the same time, after checking this thing out, it really feels like device makers are starting to get a good grasp on making flexible screen devices a really interesting alternative to your standard clamshell. Now, before we unbox this thing, it's really important to note that this is one of 3 pre-production samples that HP has sent out to the media. That said, I've been told that both the software and hardware is very close to what you'll see on the final retail units, so this should be a really good preview of what this thing is actually going to be like when it comes out sometime later in October. What we have here is a 17-inch OLED display. It's 2560 by 1920 resolution, and it has Visa True Black HDR 500 certification, which is pretty nice to see on a flexible device. Now, the other thing you'll probably notice right away is how thin these bezels are. Compared to something like the ASUS Zenbook 17 Fold, these are way sleeker, and it just looks more like a modern tablet instead of something that's a bit clunky, bit first gen. Now, one quirk that you'll notice is that the webcam, which in this case is a 5 megapixel IR webcam situation, that's positioned on the side, so if you kind of hold it up and you're using it in a desktop mode, it's going to be off to the right or the side instead of at the top like you might be accustomed to. That said, if you do flip it around like this into clamshell mode, it'll be right at the top where you'd expect it to be. Now on the right here, you'll see that there's a detachable keyboard. So if we unfold this, pull it out, looks pretty familiar, although if you see down here, there's a crease, and that kind of hints to one of the Spectre Fold's more interesting features that we'll get to in a little bit. And then if we remove this over on the left, you'll notice that we have your standard USB-C charging adapter and power cable. And over here, there's a really interesting dongle, which is what you'll use to charge the keyboard, but you probably won't use it very often, and you'll find out why in a little bit. And then if we go back over to the right, under here, we have a included stylus, which is always really nice to see, and there's even a spare nib, really cool, thanks to HP. And over here, there's a little included dock, which is really appreciated on a system like this because even though it has 2 USB 4 ports, you're always wanting more, and it's really nice to see something come with an included dock. And now that we've taken a look at the inside of the box and all the included accessories, give me a minute to power this thing on, connect the Wi-Fi, connect the keyboard via Bluetooth, and then we'll really see what this thing can do. So now that we got this thing set up, I gotta say, it was really easy. All I had to do to connect the keyboard was toggle the switch on here, and everything just seamlessly connected. It was really that simple. So aside from getting through the normal Windows setup, it was super, super easy, which is really nice to see. And so, as you can see in clamshell mode, even though the screen is a little bit smaller than your typical ultra portable at 12.5 inches, it's still super sleek, super slim, really easy to carry around. Of course, this is not the only thing the Spectre Fold can do, because HP is calling this thing its first 3-in-1, as evidenced by this little handy demo app that HP has on the screen. So, when you want to transform this thing, you have a couple options. If I remove the stylus and just slide the keyboard forward like this, you get what HP calls the expanded mode. In this, you have a 14-inch display with what HP is calling its 1.5 screen, so you get a full screen on top and kind of a half-ish screen down here. And then the keyboard slides down, and this is where that crease comes in really handy because the touchpad folds down and you get a really natural typing experience because of this little angled wrist rest. Of course, this is only halfway, and so we can go and remove this keyboard down here, and this is what HP calls the extended mode. In this, you get your full 12.5-inch display up here, another full display down here for whatever you want to do. You can have, messages or apps or email down there, and you still have your big project up top, and then you still get your traditional keyboard and touchpad down below. There's one more trick that this thing can do. So if I fold this thing open fully and pull out this really handy kickstand and back, now we have what is essentially a really portable all-in-one PC. You can push the keyboard up like that, store the stylus wherever you want, and there you have it. And to me, this is probably the most interesting use case because I was working last week remotely, and even though I brought a 15-inch laptop, I was starving for extra display real estate. And if something like this was around, I would have gladly taken it because it's not that much bigger, but you do get just a little bit more display to work with, and that's something that I'm always looking for. Now, if we look at some of the finer details, you'll notice that there's basically no crease at all. So HP worked a lot on this hinge, and there is a 5mm radius hinge right here. And if we kind of collapse this thing down again, you'll see that the keyboard fits neatly inside when it's closed. So you get a really cool self-contained package. But one of my favorite things is that HP also included a couple charging coils down on the bottom lip of the laptop, so that when you put the keyboard inside and you attach the pen, which connects magnetically, super nice, both of them will charge wirelessly when it's sitting in your bag. Now that said, if we remember, there was that little charging accessory for the keyboard. So if you need to recharge this thing in a pinch, you can connect the dongle over here and then just plug it in up here. Here's one USB-C port up top, and then there's another one actually all the way across on this side. I feel like HP's designers worked on this to make sure that this cord was just long enough so you could do this, so it keeps things actually looking pretty tidy. Some other really useful features that I like and appreciate is that you have your power button up here, buttons for volume right here, but you also get a physical shutter switch, which is something you wouldn't expect on a laptop that's really leaning into the whole flexible screen thing and might not have a ton of space to include a feature like that. Now, as for the body of the Spectre Fold, HP is actually using mostly recycled magnesium, up to 90% across the chassis. Now, as you've probably guessed by now, this thing isn't meant to be a performance powerhouse, but for basic productivity, it should be more than enough. You get a Intel Core i7-1250U CPU, 16 gigs of RAM, and a 1TB M.2 SSD. Also, for general usability, because Windows isn't exactly designed fully to support devices like this with flexible displays, HP has worked with Microsoft to add a couple snapping options to Windows 11, so you can really take advantage of this flexible display. Now, I know this all seems a bit far-fetched, and it is, but as someone who's always looking out for the next wave of devices that change how we can use the devices we own, I think this is a really sleek and elegant solution to making that flexible display really work on a portable system. Now, that said, there is one really big sticking point. This thing is going to start at $5,000. That's a lot of money for anything, and especially when you compare it to rivals like the ASUS Zenbook 17 Fold, that thing started at around $2,800. So we're looking at almost double the price. That said, when we compare this stuff to other previously announced systems like Lenovo's X1 Fold, their 17-inch flexible laptop that they announced last year and still hasn't gone on sale, you can kind of see why this thing commands an extremely high price. The other side of that is, I think HP knows that not a ton of people are going to buy this thing just because of that price. That said, HP has been very clear that part of the reason why the Spectre Fold exists at all is because they want to give consumers, the average people, a look at what can be done with today's cutting-edge technology. So maybe you'll be able to forgive that extremely high price tag, just a little bit. Now, if you don't want to spend $5,000 of your own money to be a guinea pig and test this thing out, don't worry, I get it. But, that's kind of what we're here for. And I'm really excited to check this thing out, especially after using Lenovo's dual-screen YogaBook 9i and ASUS's Zenbook 17 Fold last year, because I think this is probably the most engaging version of what a flexible laptop could be. But as always, for more from Engadget, don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more news, reviews, and videos coming soon.